1 in 36. That's the number of kids with autism in the United States. This is based on 2020 data of children who are 8 years of age. This is very alarming. I'm Dr. Mary Barbera. I've been in the autism world for over 2 decades. Back when my son Lucas was diagnosed in 1999, the rate was 1 in 500. Before that, in the 70s, it was thought to be 1 in 10,000. But for 16 years, the CDC has been tracking autism to a much greater extent. And guess what? Every 2 years, it gets worse. So I am presenting on this data and these new findings today in our Turn Autism Around, Train the Trainer program. We have more than 70 professionals and very advanced parents in our Train the Trainer program. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about this number and what it means, and some of the stats also in my book, my newest book, Turn Autism Around, with a subtitle that's super important, an action guide for parents of young children with early signs of autism. Because while this stat, 1 in 36, is really alarming, here's another stat that has been going on for actually more years than just recently. 1 in 6. 1 in 6 kids, 8-year-olds, actually have some kind of developmental disorder, either autism, ADHD, learning disabilities, cerebral palsy. There's a bunch of different developmental disorders, but 1 in every 6 children. The techniques that are in my book, Turn Autism Around, are good for kids ages 1 to 5, maybe older, with any kind of delays, with speech delays, with sensory issues, with hyperactivity, any kind of issues. If you have a child with a rare genetic issue, you have children with Down syndrome, these techniques are all important to at least consider for your children. So getting back to the new CDC findings that just came out, I believe it was like March 20-something, 22nd, 23rd of 2023. The 1 in 36. For the first time ever, too, children who are Asian, Hispanic, and Black were more likely to be identified at age 8 with autism. There is no known cause, although most speculate that environmental triggers coupled with a genetic predisposition. And the treatment has always been, the treatment of choice has always been intensive behavioral treatment, which is ABA for short, Applied Behavior Analysis. Now, there has been controversy over the years. I've been a behavior analyst practicing applied behavior analysis for since 2003. And I'm not going to spend too much time on the controversy, but there's no controversy on, in my mind, there should be no controversy on treating early speech delays, treating early social delays, treating early behavioral issues. Of course, all 2 and 3-year-olds are going to cry. They're going to have occasional tantrums. They're going to, feel their way, especially kids with language delays and disorders. But there are proven strategies that are child-friendly, that are can be parent-led, and don't have to involve, your standard traditional ABA therapy, which may or may not be right. I am going to talk also about some of the findings in the book. One of the things I do want to talk about, in addition to just the massive numbers of kids going from, in 1999, 1 in 500 to now 1 in 36, you can imagine the wait lists for evaluations and treatment are very long. Even before COVID, most of the parents told me that they were waiting 9 months to 2 years just for an evaluation. And this is the critical time where kids need at least parent-led therapy. There's 100 hours a week of waking hours for most toddlers, and they need to be engaged with meaningful activities and joint attention and babbling back and forth and following simple directions and routines without major tantrums. And I feel like people are waiting and worrying and not knowing what to do. And that's really where my work, my book, my online courses, my podcast, my life's mission is to get to parents like you perhaps who are waiting, worrying, just got a diagnosis, are waiting for an evaluation, because there's so much you can do. In chapter 1, actually on pages 3 and 4 of my book, I talk a fair amount about the work of Dr. Ami Klin, and he has a PhD. He's at Emory University, and he has worked with colleagues. Published a paper in 2020, which you can find. And I was able to get his paper when it was in publication mode, and was able to include some of his work and his stats in my book on pages 3 and 4. So here's some stats that I got from Dr. Ami Klin's work. Kids are not diagnosed until ages 4 or 5 on average, even though parents see the first signs years earlier. And just like I'm a registered nurse, I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but I used to work with stroke and head injury patients. And you talk about like the golden hour or the first year being critical when your brain has the most plasticity, the most ability to change. So kids are, the parents see the signs, and then kids are not diagnosed until 4 or 5. So 50% of all children don't receive any autism treatment until kindergarten. By that time, many children have severe language and behavioral issues with intellectual disability. My son, Lucas, even though he had the best of the best treatment that we could provide or find back in the late 1990s and early 2000s, he does have a intellectual disability coupled with his autism now. I don't believe it was there early on. He was actually quite bright when he was little. But, even with the best of the best treatment, intellectual disability can come along. So as I said, the 1 in 6 is alarming too. 1 in 6 kids have some kind of developmental disorder by the time they are 8. The other alarming statistic from Dr. Ami Klin's work is that intellectual disability coupling with autism occur much more in Black children. So white children have ASD, autism spectrum disorder, plus intellectual disability at 27%. Black children are almost double at 47%, and Hispanic children have ASD plus intellectual disability right in the middle, 36%. That doesn't mean that Black children have some weird genetic thing that is causing intellectual disability. That means that parents are not given access to early diagnosis and or early parent-led therapy techniques at the rate where white parents are getting that information. So, I think the CDC stats caught up, because now they're finding that 8-year-olds have autism at higher rates, than white children. But Ami Klin's work, which was done a few years ago, his research shows that this is indeed true. So Ami Klin, in my book, I have these quotes here for the training that I'm doing today. If children with delays or signs of autism are treated very early, intellectual disabilities, language disorders, and problem behavior that often accompany severe autism can sometimes be prevented or lessened in severity. So the big thing is that we have to take action.